some cookies today. Brown butter chocolate chunk. These are gluten-free. This recipe is based off of lots of experimentation, looking at other popular famous recipes I've seen, and just taking little elements from different things that I love and a little bit of my own knowledge about gluten-free and what works well. I decided to make the brown butter in advance. Here's our brown butter, you can kind of see. Brown butter takes a really long time to cool down. I just want to make sure that when I'm using my brown butter here, it is room temperature to cool. I'm gonna do a mixture of brown butter and solid unsalted butter. Part of the benefit that we get from butter when it's a little solid, but not solid like a rock, is it's easier to incorporate air, which gets some texture and lift into our dough. Yep, that was my oven. So I did preheat my oven. I set it for 375. Temperature is super important at every step of the way in baking. Temperature of your components, your ingredients, temperature of the dough when you bake it, and temperature of your oven. So we're going to start off with creaming brown sugar and white sugar. 1 1/4 cups brown sugar. It's this kind of a chewier cookie. The white caster sugar gives you more spread, but I do like the balance of the both. I think cinnamon and chocolate is just such a beautiful pairing. So if I have chocolate in a recipe, you can pretty much always guarantee I'm going to have cinnamon in it. So I'm going to add in some cinnamon here. I don't measure cinnamon usually, so I add enough. I'm gonna get these a little mixed up, and then I'm gonna add in our butter. So we're just gonna mix real quick on slow. Let's see. And now we're gonna add in our butter. So that is 4 tablespoons of our softened butter. And then this came from about a cup of stick butter that I then turned into brown butter, so it's the remnants of that, which ends up being just a little over 3/4. So butter is about 15% water, and we browned it. We probably lost about 15% of that volume. All right, let's get this going. I've got my 4 tablespoons of butter mixed in, and I'm gonna start slowly pouring in my melted and cooled brown butter. One of the best things about baking with brown butter is honestly just getting to smell it while you're cooking. It is one of my favorite scents. Okay, so we want this to be really beautiful and fluffy. So I'm taking a pause to make sure that I scrape down the sides. But if you can kind of see the texture here, it almost looks like icing, right? Like a whipped icing or a buttercream, and that's kind of what we want. I do want it to go just a little further because this does super matter texturally. We'll get this re-whipping. We're going to be doing a mix of different types of flours because they have different kinds of properties. The all-purpose is good for yeast-risen things, and the 1-to-1 is good for pure leavening from baking powder, baking soda, that kind of thing. One thing to make sure you know is if you're using the all-purpose, it doesn't have a binder added, so there's no xanthan gum. There's already some pre-mixed into the 1-to-1, and the 1-to-1 is a little bit of a lower protein content. It's mainly made from rice. 1 cup of all-purpose Bob's Red Mill gluten-free flour mix. 1 2/3 cup of our 1-to-1 Bob's Red Mill gluten-free flour mix. And I can see our butter is creaming with our sugar. It's getting close here, so that's good. We're using a very small amount of xanthan gum. We're only going to use 1/4 of a teaspoon because remember, we already have a little bit in our 1-to-1. I just realized an ingredient I forgot to add earlier, but this is an ingredient that's actually okay to add at any point, so it's fine. Espresso and coffee flavors in general really helps bring out the chocolate flavor. Cinnamon complements chocolate really well. Coffee's a little different. It does complement it, but it actually, especially in the small portions we're using it in, it's less that we're using it to complement it and more we're using it to enrich the flavor. So you won't actually taste coffee from this. You'll really just taste a deeper chocolate flavor. We're not adding a whole lot, we're just adding enough to emphasize that. We are going to do 2 tablespoons of espresso. This could really, you could even have added this into your dry ingredients if you want. I like adding it in when I'm creaming because it really incorporates it into the fats, and fat is what carries a lot of flavor. All right, and then I was just about to add the eggs, but I am gonna whip this in first and then I will add the egg. Okay, there we go. Oh, I wish you guys could smell this batter. You can smell the coffee, you can smell the sugar, you can smell the brown butter. And for our eggs, we're actually going to do 1 full egg white and egg yolk, and then just 1 extra yolk. Egg white has a higher water content and is really good and high in protein and stretch and holding structure. And the egg yolk adds richness and flavor. It's kind of fatty, so it helps with fudginess. So there's different purposes from each. It's really a main part of our water in recipes like this comes from the eggs and the egg white actually. You have to do it 1 step at a time with the eggs and incorporate it. If you just dump it all in there at once, you don't get as beautiful of that emulsifying effect where you can see the instant it goes into your batter and it starts bringing everything together, you know, the water into the fat and making it an even homogeneous solution. It's gonna sound cheesy here, but you can see it. It's a beautiful looking batter. Get that going and have it emulsify with that first egg. So we're going to give that about a minute to incorporate or so. We'll turn this off and we'll scrape down our sides. Alright, so you guys can kind of see how thick and rich this batter is. Okay. We're going to incorporate that yolk. Give it about a minute. Make sure for whatever vanilla you use, it doesn't have to be pure, you know, real vanilla versus imitation or whatever. It just has to be gluten-free. That is something that you got to watch out for. It's a sneaky one. So now we're going to add in our vanilla. We're going to do 2 teaspoons. I'm going to add a teaspoon of lemon juice for its acidic properties. Gluten-free flours often need a higher hydration percentage than your other flours. They just tend to need more to absorb and hold structure. So a little higher hydration never hurts. So we're going to add our teaspoon of lemon juice. You can kind of see it's held its shape a little from taking the paddle out. So it's got a pretty decent strength to this batter. Now we're going to start scooping in slowly 1 by 1 our dry mix that we made here. With gluten flours, you got to worry about over mixing a heck of a lot more and getting tunneling and toughness as you overwork that gluten. We don't got to worry about that. So I'm going to put this on low and just slowly mix it in. We don't have to worry as much about over mixing, but we do want good incorporation of our dry ingredients. So it's much thicker now immediately. It's a workable batter after adding in our flours. So let's get that mixing just a little more. This looks pretty well mixed. Oh yeah, okay. So we're gonna do a little over a cup of each. Your regular milk chocolate chips, and then I have 62% dark chocolate chunks. The next step that we're gonna do is scooping out our cookies. I like a large cookie, so I use an ice cream scoop. I'm scooping them onto a parchment paper on a cooling rack. This should make about 20-ish cookies. You might think, oh my gosh, I'm putting these incredibly close together. I'm not going to be baking from this sheet. This is actually just going to set us up, freeze them. So yeah, the nice part about being able to, well, there's a lot of nice parts about being able to freeze these. It means you just have them on hand, ready to go. You can make as many cookies as you want to eat. Maybe you don't want to make all 20 at once. When you freeze them, you can just literally bake 1 or 2 as you want them. So that's our last cookie. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, so about 20, like I said. You want to take some extra of your chocolate chips or chunks, whatever you're using, and at the end, kind of press them in on top, and that will give you, when you bake them, kind of just that beautiful appearance you would expect of your chocolate chip cookies and make them look really chocolatey, and will obviously taste chocolatey too, because you're going to be eating them. This batch is basically done. What I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to freeze them. So I cleared off room in my freezer. I should be able to slide this right in. Here is our fridge batch. Our oven is at 375. We're going to try 10 minutes, see how those look. Let's get these cookies out of here. If you're going to do the sea salt, you want to do it right when they come out. Just a couple flaky sea salt chunks, this coarse ground sea salt. We want to really give them like a good 5 to 10 minutes to cool. There we go. First 5 minutes cooling done, and I'm doing 5 more on there. You guys can kind of see, let me show you. Break this so you guys can kind of see the inside. Now I'm gonna eat it. Yeah, so it's got a little bit of that crispiness from the bottom, but it's still got some of that soft fluffiness in the middle and center.